Good morning. I'm going to continue today with the reading of my ethical will and treatise on non-dualism that I've called Thus Spake Christopher, after Nietzsche's Thus Spake Zarathustra. So let me share my screen, and then I'll read the next four sections of 5 through 8. And let's see, I've got to do a little bit of cleanup here real quickly so that I can see everything that's going on. Okay, and I think I'm ready. Everything can be found at my webpage, www.docbenton.com. You scroll down to the best of Doc Benton, and here you find Thus Spake Christopher. You can just download the whole thing, or you can listen to these videos. And for more information on the references to biblical literature, rabbinic literature, Jewish mysticism, you can go to this free website called Safaria, where you get access to all these different Jewish texts for free. Okay, I've already opened Thus Spake Christopher to the appropriate place, so let me begin. Chapter 5. The man looked at me and next asked, "What is enlightenment?" I began to answer. When I was little, I thought that enlightenment meant that you would be happy ever after and never again feel pain or sorrow. But now that I am older, I have a different view of enlightenment. To me, enlightenment is that moment when you suddenly realize at a deep level, both experientially and logically, that the person you think of as you is only a sock puppet for the awareness that returns to the body every morning. At the beginning of each day, awareness gives the appearance of returning to a physical body. And then it reads the program within that body that says, "I am so-and-so, and this is my body, and this is my life." When you realize, however, that you are not the program in your brain, but the awareness that perceives the program, then you stand at the edge of enlightenment. Furthermore, while most people think of enlightenment as the end of their spiritual journey, it is really only the midpoint. Like the illumination at the full moon, there is still a journey that continues as that illumination is further understood and assimilated back into the oneness of the union of the perceived with the perceiver. And then a new cycle and a new journey begin. Additionally, when one is little, one thinks of oneself as a ghost inside a machine, with the exterior world out there. But the reality is that the perceiver, the perceived, and the act of perceiving are never separate from one another. Like a trio of quarks making up a proton, we may think of them as being separate items, but they always exist together simultaneously. And if we cannot separate them, are they really separate things? Thus, awareness comes to know that it is all that is, and that it can at times give the appearance of absolute oneness, and at other times it can give the appearance of multiplicity, and at other times it is simply the knowing of things. Either way, though, it is all just awareness, appearing to take on many different forms without anything really changing. Thus, neither pain nor pleasure nor life nor death disappear with enlightenment. They are simply understood for what they really are. Nonetheless, by correctly understanding the true shadowy nature of what we think of as an objective reality that is separate from ourselves, we can become connected to everything. And that which is peace and wholeness, by its very nature, suddenly becomes aware of the depth of its own peace and wholeness. And from that moment on, everything continues as it was before, except that the perfection and the oneness of each moment is suddenly deeply understood. Thus spake Christopher. Chapter 6. Do you meditate? Asked the man. I began to answer. I am always meditating, though one could say that there are two different modes to my meditation. one mode with eyes closed and another mode with eyes open. Every morning, after spending about 15 minutes to quiet and center my mind, I meditate for another half hour with my eyes closed. I follow an ancient technique that is given in the Book of Creation, but which is also similar to the mindfulness techniques that may be found elsewhere. This procedure amounts to simply stilling one's mind and then directing every thought and perception back to the awareness that both creates and perceives that thought and perception. Consequently, instead of getting caught up in the drama of one's thoughts and emotions, awareness simply and continually becomes aware of itself. But since we do not perceive awareness in the same way as we do objects in the world of multiplicity, we only know awareness as a unity with no divisions or parts. And as we, so to speak, move closer to that indivisible awareness, it is only natural that we begin to feel more oneness. And we also begin to feel more love, because what is love if not oneness? In the book of instruction, Abraham was told to go to a new land, but the Hebrew phrase, lech lecha, actually means go to yourself. Hence, if you want to find that promised land, then you must not look to what you think of as out there, but rather to what you recognize as the core and the source of your own being. Also, over time, you will realize that there's no separation between the knower, the known, and the act of knowing. And at that point, you will realize that all of this exists simultaneously, and that there is no separation or imperfection, only the thought of separation and imperfection. Thus, I meditate not to reach a perfection that is already always present, but to simply become more aware of the perfection that already exists. Perfection is perfection and wholeness is wholeness, whether I realize it or not. But by meditating, I do make my experience of things more pleasant and my awareness of the whole more strong. And when I'm not meditating with eyes closed, I'm simply meditating with eyes open. By that I mean that as I go throughout my day, I take every perception I have and follow it back to the awareness where it is understood. And that way, every perception, whether painful or pleasant, takes me back to a state of oneness. Furthermore, at the beginning, one thinks that there are two wells, one that is the source of everything and one that receives everything. We naively call one well ourselves and the other well the world. However, the ultimate realization is that the well that everything comes from, the well that everything is poured into, and even the act of pouring are all one. This is the ultimate truth that stands whether we realize it or not. However, by meditating in the way that I've described above, we can become more aware of that which already is, and that transforms what appears to be turbulent oceans into still waters. Thus spake Christopher. Chapter 7. The man asked, "How many gods are there?" I began to answer. The correct answer to your question is many, one, and none. Most people have a conception of a god or gods that they give characteristics to, such as loving, long-suffering, or as the one who delivers justice. These are the gods that one makes, the gods that we make in our image. In Hebrew, these gods are called Elohim. In contrast to this is the God that is beyond all conception, the God that cannot be defined not due to an intellectual failing or limitation on our part, but because such a definition is intrinsically and mathematically impossible. This is the God that the Hebrews call Yud-He-Vav-He, or the one who causes being. This is the name that is never pronounced so as to illustrate that it is unknowable and void of characteristics. Hence, some may also call it the void or emptiness. When I use the term God, I'm generally referring to the mysterious, unknowable awareness that sits at the core of our being, and that is the center of our life. The I am that represents pure awareness without identification with any object or concept. For me, this mysterious awareness is how the notion of Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh is experienced in practical terms. An Elohim can be called he or she, but Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, or the void, can at best only be called they or it. Once duality arises, however, then this void takes on the appearance of an inner awareness that observes everything. Hence, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh is also known as Ehyeh, or I am. Thus, one could say, in a sense, that in the beginning, the void, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, created duality, and the void without characteristics appeared as Elohim with characteristics. But the void, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, was Elohim, and Elohim was Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. The void was I am, and I am was the void. That which had no characteristics became that with all characteristics. No characteristics and all characteristics were the same. And that is the ultimate contradiction that can be known but not grasped. That is the unspeakable mystery and the enlightenment that awaits each individual. Thus spake Christopher. And lastly, chapter 8. The man looked at me and asked, "Does God actually exist?" I began to answer, "Have you not heard that God is dead, and that God is alive, and that God is both dead and alive, and that God is neither dead nor alive? The highest conception of God is beyond all conceptions, and hence it is beyond concepts of existence and non-existence, life and death. Those who know only a God of characteristics are at a lower level, and they fight among one another over who has the right definition of God. In this regard, the atheist is superior, since they look at any God with characteristics and say, not this, not that. Hence, they are closer to the void. But those at even higher levels are aware that there is a mystery at the core of everything, an enigma that can't be solved. It is only those who are aware of this mystery that can be said to know the God that can't be known, and even they don't know it. They are simply witnesses to the mystery, the source of life that appears within us as our awareness. Thus spake Christopher. Okay, that concludes my 4 sections or chapters for today. So let me stop sharing. And I'm back. I hope you enjoyed those 4 sections, and next I'll do another 4 sections. But that's it for now, so hope to see you again soon, but so long and be well.